So, some thoughts on geoengineering and what some people refer to as chemtrails, and as far as the whole manipulation of the truth, the lies that the mainstream media, with the assistance of astroturfing, if you're not familiar with that term, Cheryl Atkinson, former major network anchor, has basically gone out, and she's a whistleblower on the whole issue. Watch her video. It was at TEDx. She gave a talk. As far as all that goes, one thing that needs to be understood is there have been global protests. There have been protests in the street in the EU. I'm not sure if it was Spain or France. People wearing pictures of planes spewing out all kinds of garbage. People having family members and friends who've been made sick. My wife and I personally have been made sick by these things sprayed over Salem, Oregon. Yeah, okay, you tell those people the science doesn't add up, okay, and they're going to tell you they don't care if the science adds up or not. They know what they know. There have been independent laboratory samples taken from things that have been sprayed over people's homes, farms, etc. People have scraped these things off windshields, etc. And laboratory tests say the same thing. There's aluminum. There's radium, I believe, is what the other substance is. There are traces of pharmaceuticals. There have been traces of all kinds of things that have been found. I'm not making this up. You can look these things up. There's definitely something there. This is not your run-of-the-mill contrail. A contrail is what? Vapor? Water vapor? And that's about it. Okay, you can see videos that I have up on my YouTube, my wife's YouTube. We've been documenting this since Florida, I believe. 3 states now. There's clearly a deliberate intent here as to who's involved and who's behind it. Follow the money trail. And it's not just here in the United States, as I'm saying. It's global. It is a global conspiracy. It's not a theory. This is conspiracy here. It's a known fact that the very richest of families in the world have made it very clear that they do not care for the fact that the planet is so overpopulated, and they want to cull the population any way they can. And they will utilize any method necessary, even in the guise of geoengineering. By geoengineering, meaning let's just block out the sun because we're getting too much solar radiation, and it's not beneficial to the planet. It's harmful, and so that is actually a justified reason for geoengineering. But there are ulterior motives. There are other byproducts that result from geoengineering. People getting sick, people dying. Morgellons disease is something that they want you to believe doesn't exist. It's a delusional parasitosis, according to what they want to tell you from health departments, etc., this and that. But when you go and you see this person's skin is actually got fibers in it, which more than likely is related to a nanotechnology that's being used in the dispersal of these various types of trails, people are being exposed to it. I was living in Florida at the time, and they were spraying Jacksonville heavily, and there were multiple cases of Morgellons disease in Jacksonville. So connect the dots. Follow the money trail. This is not something I'm making up. This is not something that is a theory anymore. There is fact behind this. There are pilots that you can talk to. There are various whistleblowers that you can talk to. Go to Facebook. Look at the Facebook groups of various people with their documentation and evidence that they've been documenting this. You try to convince them that the science doesn't add up. You know, I said this, you're never going to convince them. I take this personally. Those people take this personally. You should take this personally when you are made ill from it too. They're not going to ask you for permission. They're never going to ask your permission. They don't ask your permission. They don't need your permission. There are various provisions in the not Constitution, but I believe it's in the Homeland Security Act that basically say that for the good of the homeland, they can do any kind of experimentation they want. So, these are things that your representatives don't know because they didn't even bother reading the Homeland Security Acts. That's basically what it comes down to. They just pass them without even bothering reading them. These things are huge. They're long. Why would they bother reading them? So, if you want to look at these things as normal condensation trails, by all means, look at them as normal condensation trails. But if you want to talk about science, let's talk about science. Normal condensation trails last about several seconds to several minutes, and they're gone. These things are hanging in the air for 8 hours a day at a time. Now, you tell me that's a normal condensation trail. Okay, under normal circumstances, that should not be happening. And that's the bottom line. So, I think I've made myself clear about this. No one's going to convince me otherwise. No one's going to convince those other people otherwise. Like I said, there have been protests. There have been men, women, and children protesting this, both in the United States and abroad. This is not something that is to be taken lightly. And I'm getting sick and tired of people taking this lightly. They're not going to stop. I don't know if there's a way to make them stop. But this is something that has been going on for some time now, and it's going to continue until there is a growing consensus and understanding that this is not a theory, that this is real, it's happening, it's a fact, and there are multiple sources to confirm this, including weather people, by the way. There's actually I didn't mention this, and I can't remember his website. You'll have to look him up, but he is a former weatherman who quit being a weatherman because he was mocked and ridiculed because he had evidence that this is real and this is happening. And it's been some time now since I've checked into what's been going on with him. But there are a lot of whistleblowers out there, not just Megan, I can't remember her last name, who she was, I guess she was a procurer for the Air Force. They actually threatened to lock her up because she was willing to come out and tell the truth about what she discovered. There are a lot of people in the know. Am I one of those people in the know? No. But am I following and listening to those people in the know? Damn straight. And I'm always going to do that. I'm always going to keep an open mind. I'm not going to keep an open mind to the point where my brain's going to fall out, but I'm always going to keep an open mind as to whether something is the truth or it's just astroturfing and manipulated lies and deception. And there's a lot of that going on planet Earth right now. And it's coming from both the right and the left. It's all the same, two sides of the same coin as far as I'm concerned. So, who do you believe? You believe what you believe inside. That's what you believe. You've got to go with that inner voice. Don't listen to the media because the media has been manipulated for some time. The big three, NBC, CBS, ABC, ABC is Disney. CBS is White Westinghouse. They make nuclear power plants. NBC is also involved in the nuclear industry. Basically they've been contaminated. They are not sources, as far as I'm concerned, independent sources like Coast to Coast AM radio, various other sources. They're the ones to listen to. They're the ones who will tell you the truth. You're not going to hear on the news that this thing is true. They've done everything they can to debunk it. And the debunkers have been debunked. They're nothing more than paid shills, especially the ones online. It's been made very clear. It's been, this is not something that, I'm not making this up, okay? There's people out there who have a very, very high vested interest in this to ensure that this continues, that it's not questioned, and that it goes on unabated. And if you have any doubt, there's two videos I highly recommend. What in the world are they spraying and why in the world are they spraying? And you will see firsthand what the actual effects are, what the byproduct of this spraying is on crops, etc. This and that. I mean, in Hawaii, you'll hear personal accounts from people. So again, I'm coming out here and I'm saying this because I'm really getting tired of debating something that no longer needs to be debated. This is not something that needs to be debated. Maybe it was debated some time ago. No one's going to convince me. No one's going to convince those thousands of other protesters, etc., this and that this is something that is not happening. It's happening. It's real. And you can believe it or not believe it. And if the science doesn't add up, I'm sorry, the science doesn't add up. Science doesn't always add up. There are things in heaven and earth, more in heaven than earth, greater than, I can't really come up with the quote, it's Shakespeare, that we can begin to conceive. And, there are things in quantum physics that we don't understand. We're just beginning to understand. The science doesn't add up. It sure wouldn't add up for the scientists from the 20th century. Okay, so, I'm all for science. But you know what? I'm not going to put science before fact. If facts are facts, facts are facts. And that's all I'm going to say. Thanks for listening.